what are the differences you see in, between the method and constructor? What is the first difference? Method is what? It's a named block. Method is what? It's a named block. Whereas constructor is a special named block with the class name. It's a special named block with the class name. It's a special named block with a class name. Whereas method is what? Method is only a named block. That's it. Any other differences? Yeah. So you can apply return type. Return type is applicable for method. Return type is applicable for method. Return type is applicable for a method, but for constructor we cannot apply the return type. We cannot apply for constructor. We cannot apply the return type. Return type is applicable for method, and return type is not applicable for method. Return type is not applicable for constructor, but for method we can apply the return type. We can apply. Any other differences? We can invoke explicitly. We can invoke explicitly. We can invoke n number of times. You can call this method explicitly. Simply by creating the object for that particular class, you can call that method. You can call n number of times. You can call that particular method. Whereas in case of constructor, we cannot invoke explicitly. We cannot invoke explicitly. We cannot invoke this one. It's a part of object creation. We cannot invoke explicitly. It is a part of object creation. It's a part of what? Object creation. Meaning whenever you create an object for a particular class, it's going to call the constructor. But if you want to call a method, you have to call the method n number of times. You can call that method separately. You can call n number of times. Whereas constructor, whenever you create an object, then only it's going to call the constructor will be called. Next, any other differences? Access modifiers like static. Access modifiers like static, final, abstract. Access modifiers like static, final, abstract are applicable for methods. We can apply these modifiers like static, final, abstract. These modifiers you can apply for method. You can apply access modifiers like static, final, abstract are not applicable. Are not applicable for what? Constructor. For constructor, these modifiers you cannot apply. Okay. So these modifiers you cannot apply for constructor. You cannot apply these modifiers. So have you seen any differences here? It's a named block with any name we can specify. Whereas constructor means it's nothing but it's special named block with the class name. And return type is applicable for a method. It's not applicable. The return type is not applicable. We can call explicitly. We cannot invoke explicitly. Let's see, is there any other differences here we identified? The last statement we can add here. By default, every class will have a default constructor. But by default, a class will not have a method. If you want, you can write here. By default, every class will have a default constructor. By default, every class will have a default constructor. By default, every class will have a default constructor. By default, every class will have a default constructor. But whereas in case of method, so by default, every class will not have a by default, every class will not have a method. By default, every class will not have a method. Every class will have a constructor, default constructor. So by default, every class will not have a method. Default method will not have a default method. Meanwhile, let's think, is there any other differences? Can differentiate? Okay, so I hope maximum we covered. Maximum we covered the difference between what? The method and the constructor. Okay, one of the important interview question. Difference between method and constructor. Okay, we can call separately method, but constructor we cannot call separately. Whenever you create an object, constructor will be called. Okay, so done, right? If you want, you can take a photo of this one. Later we can note the points what is specified here. Yeah, I'm moving to the next one. So we seen, actually we are talking about this class. We are talking about what exactly class. A class describes about the two things. One is data. Second thing is what? Behavior. Behavior of a class can be represented by using methods, by using constructor. What is the third one? Blocks. What is the third one? Blocks. Let's see what exactly that blocks is. I hope you're done with this one. So I'm removing this. I'm removing these points. I'm removing. So basically, we're discussing about this concept called class. Class we are discussing. We're discussing about the class we are discussing. A class describes about the two things. One is what? One is data. Second thing is what? Behavior. A class describes about two things. One is data. Second thing is what? Behavior. Data and behavior. So we've seen about the data part. We've seen the primitive type of data, different types of data types and its sizes. We've seen about this one, right? Next, a class describes about the data and another thing is what? Behavior. A class describes about data and behavior. A class describes about what? Data and behavior. To access the data and behavior of a class, to access, but a class describes about the data and behavior, but originally who contains the data and behavior? Object contains the data and behavior. Object contains the data and behavior. A class describes about data and behavior, but originally who contains the data and behavior? Object contains the data and behavior. Okay, this is what we are discussing. We are done with the data part, we are done. And behavior of a class can be described by using methods. This is the first thing. Method. Second thing is nothing but constructor. We've seen these two things. We've seen method part, we've seen constructor, we've seen. What is the third one? Blocks. What is the third one? Blocks. So in blocks, today's session we'll discuss about these blocks. There are two types of blocks are there. One is instance block is one thing. One is instance block. Next thing is static block. instance block and static block. Instance block and static block. Behavior of a class can be represented by using methods, constructor, and blocks. We already seen the first two things. We already seen what exactly methods and constructor. Now, what is the third one? Blocks. Block can be defined by using what? Instance block and static block. Okay. So, what is my instance block? So, instance block will be execute when the object is created. It's same like constructor. It's same like constructor. Instance block will be called when the object is created. So then you can ask me a question: if it is similar to constructor, what is the need of doing this instance block? What is the need of creating the instance block? See here, before the constructor invocation, basically constructor is used to call for performing the initialization. For performing the initializations, we use the constructor we use. Before invoking the constructor, if you want to execute any logic, before the constructor execution, if you want to execute any logic, we'll write that logic in instance block, we'll write that logic in instance block, Let's see how to create that instance block. Let me start this Windows. So it's loading, we'll wait for a few minutes. So before the constructor invocation, if you want to execute any logic, so we'll write that logic in a instance block, we'll write that logic. Creating a Java class I'm creating here. I told you that I'm using an ID called, so editor called edit plus. Okay, let's choose this Java program. I'm called instance block test. I created class, I created called what? Instance block test is a class. Instance block test is a class. In this instance block test class, assume that I'm creating a constructor. You know, right? What is my constructor? If you create a block, if you create with the same name, if you create with the same class name, then it's called as constructor. Correct or not? Okay, I'm creating a constructor. I'm creating here. In this class, I'm creating a constructor. So instance block test is a constructor I'm creating here. Let's save the program. Instance block test. Let's say the program instance block test.java. Let's say the program in the C drive. Java 9:30 p.m. folder. I'm saving the file. Instance block test. So it's a constructor. It's a constructor. System.out.println. I'm specifying here. It's a constructor. I am from, let's take, for example, I am from constructor. I am from constructor. I am from constructor. As well as I'm creating an instance block also I'm creating here. Just instance block in the sense nothing but you need to do anything. Just open this flower bracket and close the flower bracket. This is called as instance block. This is called as what? Instance block. Meaning even will not give any name also will not give. Instance block means nothing but even will not configure any name also will not configure for this particular block. Just give that empty bracket like that. In this instance block, I'm writing some logic. I'm writing here in this instance block. In this particular block, I'm writing the logic. I'm writing here in this particular block. I am from instance block. I am from what? Instance block. I am from instance block. Let's say the program instance block test. So we get a constructor we created. We get one constructor we created called instance block test, and we get one instance block also we created. Okay. So whenever you create an object, when the constructor will be called, constructor will be called whenever you create an object, constructor will be called. Whenever you create an object, constructor will be what? Called. Okay. I'm creating the object I'm creating here. I'm creating the object I'm creating. Let's say instance block test is equals to new instance block test. We discussed, right? This is a way of creating an object. Basically, when you see the right side statement, this is to create an object. The right side statement is what? It's for creating an object. So this particular statement is going to call the default. I mean, the no argumented constructor. This particular statement is going to call what? The no argumented constructor will be called. Okay. It's going to call this I'm from constructor is going to be called. So we're holding a reference, we are holding called instance block test. Now say the program here. Just I create an object I created. Of course, we are not calling any methods. Just I'm creating the object for this particular class. I'm creating the object. That's it. So as per our understanding, earlier understanding, it's going to call the default constructor will be called. But now what we are doing is we created what? Instance block also we created. What I am telling is instance block will be called before the constructor creation. Before the constructor creation, instance block will be called. Let's say the program, compile and run the program. Go to the Java 11 PM folder where you saved the Java file. Sorry, 9:30 PM folder. CD space Java 9:30 PM folder where you saved the Java file. Java C. What is the class name is specified? Instance block test is a class name, correct or not? Instance block test is a class name. Instance block test.java. Again, compile the program Java instance block test. Observe here which one is going to call first. Observe which one is going to call first. The constructor will call or instance block will call. Let's see here. Click on enter. Once if you click the enter, see first we got I am from instance block we got first. First instance block is called, then after that constructor is called. First instance block is called, then after that what? After that constructor is called. Okay. So here if you have a record, behavior of a class can be represented by using what? Blocks also, instance block. Meaning if you create a block, if you create without any name, if you create a block, if you create without any name, then it is called as instance block. A block without name is called as what? Instance block. Just 1 second. We've seen, right? A block with name is called as method. A block with a special name, I mean the class name is called as constructor. A block without name is called as what? It's a instance block. Okay. It's also a part of object creation. It's also a part of object creation. How many objects you create, that many times it's going to call this instance block will be called that many times. As well as constructor also will be called. Let's say for example, 3-4 times I created the object. 3-4 times I'm creating the object for this one. Once again. So assume that 3-4 times I'm creating the object for this particular class. I'm creating the object 3-4 times. Instance block test. Is equals to new instance block test. Like this, you can create the object for multiple times. You can create the object. You can create. You can create multiple objects. You can create. So whenever you create an object, it's going to call. Whenever you create an object, it's going to call this instance block will be called, as well as constructor also will be invoked. Instance block will be called, as well as constructor also will be invoked. Let's save the program and run the program. Java C instance block test.java. Oh, this problem is nothing but the variable already used. So I'm specifying BT1 we already used, right? I'm specifying BT1 and BT2. Instance block test1, instance block test2. Okay. Let's see now. Instance block test.java. Observe here. Java instance block test. See, first we got am instance block constructor, am instance block constructor, and am instance block constructor. Am constructor. Okay. So if you have a requirement, basically constructor is used for performing the initialization. Constructor is used for performing the initialization, and before invoking the constructor only you want to execute some logic before invoking the constructor, then use what? Instance block. Then use what? Instance block. Just I'll give some theoretical notes I'll specify about this instance block. What exactly this instance block is. So instance block, a block without name is called as what? A block without name is called as instance block. A block without name is called as instance block. It is a part of object creation. It is a part of what? Object creation. Meaning whenever you create an object, this instance block will be called automatically. Whenever you create an object, this instance block will be called automatically. A block without name is called as instance block. It is a part of object creation. It is a part of object creation, and this instance block is used. This instance block is used to perform some actions. Is used to perform an action. This instance block is used to perform an action before constructor invocation. Before constructor invocation. So if you have a requirement of before calling the constructor only, you want to execute some logic, then that logic will write in the instance block, we'll write that logic. We'll see the last type of behavior, how we'll define the behavior by using what? Static block. By using what? Static block. Okay. So let's see here. A static block in the sense nothing but a block with the name called static is called a static block. A block with the name static is called as what? Static block. A block with the name static is called as static block. A block with the name static is called as what? Static block. Meaning we'll define like this, we'll define static, then after that open the flower bracket and close this flower bracket. So this is called as static block. This is called as what? Static block. A block with the name static is called as what? A static block. See, static is having a special meaning in case of our Java programming language. Okay, so there are a lot of advantages are there with the static as of now, but we are focusing only about the static blocks. If any particular block is declared static, it's called a static block. Okay, fine. This static block is also called as class level. Static blocks are class level. not backs, static blocks. Static blocks are class level. I mean, you can access this static variable, you can access in your entire application, you can access in your system, anywhere in the system, application, anywhere in the application, we can access this static variable, you can access. Static blocks are class level. Static blocks are class level. So this block will be execute only once. It is for entire application level, not for individual screens. Okay. So this block will be execute only once in a life cycle. This block will be execute only once. Only once. Class level, this block will be execute only once. So in case of instance block, every time whenever you create an object, that instance block is going to be called. But in case of static block, multiple times the static block will not be called. It's going to call only one time only the static block will be called. We execute only once, that is at the time of class loading. Only once, that is at the time of class loading time, not at the object creation time. Not at object creation time. But this static blocks, it's for entire the class, not for one single program. The static blocks is for entire class. Okay, and it's a class level, meaning inside nothing but only one time only it will execute, not at the time of object creation. Let's say not at the time of what? Object creation. In case of instance block and constructor will be called whenever you create an object, but the static block will not be called. I mean, will be called without creating the objects also will be called. Let's see, for example, I'm using here instance block test. We create a constructor, we create a method, we created. Okay. So assume that whenever you create an object, then only the constructor, and whenever you create an object, then only the constructor as well as the initialized blocks will be called. The constructor and initialized blocks will be called whenever you create an object. So simply now what I'm doing is just I'm commenting this one. I'm commenting the code I'm commenting, meaning I'm not creating the object now. I'm not creating the object, I'm not creating. Understand? So meaning if you don't create the object, will it constructor is invoked? No, the constructor will not invoke, as well as instance block also will not invoke if you don't create the object, because these two are a part of object creation. Then how to let's see here now. Let's declare a static block here. I'm declaring a static block. I'm declaring a static block. I'm declaring here. Declaring a static block. I'm declaring. And see now. Just I'm specifying a message here. I'm from static block. I'm from static block. Instance block will be invoked only at the time of object creation. The static block will be called at the time of class loading time only. Only one time only the static block will be called. Okay. Instance block, how many times will call? Whenever you create a new object. Whenever you create a new object, every time it's going to, it's going to execute the process. But here, the static block is going to be executed only once in the entire lifetime. Okay. Observe here. Instance block test.java and Java instance block test. See, we got from I am from student. I am from student. Are you executing this static block? Are you executing this static block from anywhere? No, right? We are not executing the static block. We are not executing. We are calling the main method. We are calling here. If you create the object here, then it's going to call these constructor method will be called. But here we are not creating the object. Sorry, we commented that object logic. You commented. When I run the program, we got the output we got. How we got the output? Because if you mentioned what? A static block. Okay, so got it right. So static block will be only once for the entire application. Okay, whereas in case of instance block, whenever you create an object, every time it's going to call the constructor will be called. Okay, so understand. So this is what it's an instance block, and this is what it's a static block. If you want, I'll wait for 1 or 2 minutes. If you want, you can take a snapshot. You can take. Okay. So if you want, you can take a snapshot. This is another class called. Okay. If you create the object, that instance block and constructor will be called. Here, I'm not creating any object. I'm not creating here. I'm not creating any particular object. I'm not creating here. Simply, I'm calling. So automatically, when you run the program, automatically the stack block will be called automatically. Okay. So if you want, you can write the notes. This block will be executed only once if the static blocks are class level. This block will be executed only once in the only once in the lifetime of an application. Let's say only once in the lifetime of a class. One second, just I'm framing these words. Okay, so a class level, this block will be executed only once. That is at the time of class loading, not at the time of object creation. Okay, so done, right? We are done with the stat. We are done with the instance blocks and the static block. A method without name is called as instance block. A method with the name called static is called as what? It's a static block. Okay, so we are done with the behavior part. Also, we are done. So we started the discussion about what exactly class. A class describes about the data and behavior. We are done with the data part. We done in the last class. Last class we're done with the data. How many types of different data types are there and its sizes and all. Now we see in the behavior part also we see. We see in the behavior part also we seen how to call the methods, constructors, blocks and all. Now here let's focus on this class. What exactly class is? Okay, so put a heading what? Class. So we'll discuss about this class. We'll discuss. So in your term, let's take what do you mean by class? Because I hope you guys are from a computer science background or MCA background. So as per your academic definition, let's take what is meant by class. Okay, let's see here what exactly class is. Basically, the textbook answer I'll find for this class is nothing but the textbook answer for this class is nothing but it's a blueprint to create an object. It's a blueprint to create what? An object. The textbook answer. Class is what? A blueprint to create an object. Is a textbook answer. As for our answer, what we are discussing is class is a real-time entity. Each and every class you can represent as a real-time entity. Class is a real-time entity. Each class describes about what? Data and behavior. Class is a real-time entity. Each and every class describes about what? The data and behavior. Class describes about data and behavior. Okay. Let's see what is the class syntax. What is a class? Syntax of defining a class. Syntax of creating the class. Let's see here. The first syntax is nothing but we had to specify access specifier. Access specifier. Second thing is nothing but access modifier. I'm telling you the syntax of creating the class. As of now, blindly we are following class name, we are telling like that. But the original syntax of defining the class is completely different. Access specifier, access modifier, okay. Then after that, you can configure the class keyword, you can configure access specifier, access modifier, class keyword. Then after that class name you have to configure. You have to configure the class name, you have to configure. Then after this class name, we have to configure the generic type, you have to configure. If you want, you can in the brackets, if you want, you can mention it's a generics. See, slowly we are entering, we are touching the depth of Java, we are touching here slowly, okay? So these are the syntax of creating a class: access specifier, access modifier, the class keyword, class name, generics. Then after that, we have to use extends or implements. Extends or implements. The last thing is nothing but class name or interface name. What's the last one? It should be a class name or interface name. It should be a class name or interface. Okay. This is the syntax of creating a class. This is what? The syntax of creating a class. Specifier, modifier, class name, class keyword, class name, generics, extends or implements, class name or interface name. Okay. So what is the first one? Access specifier. What is the first one? Access specifier. Let's see what are the access specifiers are available. You do one thing. Now we are discussing about a concept called access specifiers and access modifiers. We are discussing a concept called what? Access specifiers and access modifiers. So now we'll discuss about the access specifiers. There are 4 access specifiers in Java. There are 4 access specifiers in Java. There are 4 access specifiers in Java. The 4 access specifiers are: one is public, one is what? Public. Second thing is private, public, private, protected, and default. Protected and default. There are 4 access specifiers are there. These are the 4 access specifiers. After discussing about these 4 access specifiers, then we'll discuss about the access modifiers. There are total 8 access modifiers are there, like abstract, final, native, transient, volatile, strict FP, like that. There are around 8 access modifiers are there. After discussing these components, we'll discuss that access modifiers we'll discuss. What is the first one here? What is the first one? Public. Okay, let's do one thing. Before going to discuss about this public, you note a small diagram in your notes. You note a small diagram in your notes. That is a simple table kind of thing, which will help you a lot. Which will help you a lot for your further reference. A small table kind of thing. Here, first thing is a specifier or modifier. First thing is what? Specifier or modifier. Let's draw this table. End of the day, you are going to understand this complete whole table. You'll understand. What is the first one? Specifier or modifier is the first thing. access specifier or access modifier. That is the first thing. Okay. So next, let's see here whether it is applicable for a class or not. Is applicable for a class or not. Next, the class, inner class, inner class means nothing but if you create a class within another class is called as what? It's a inner class. Class, inner class. Next, if you want to make it simple, if you want to make, you can apply as data and variable. That's it. You can apply as a data. This particular access modifier is specifier or modifier is applicable for data or not. The other thing is nothing but method. Method. Okay. If you want to, will write here. One is nothing but interface is one thing. Second thing is nothing but constructor. One more thing is constructor is one thing. We'll see whether it is applicable for a constructor or not. And one more thing is nothing but what? Interface. Whether this particular thing is applicable for a interface or not. What is the next one? Interface. Okay. While you are learning this access specifiers and access modifiers, you had to remember this table also. You had to remember. You know, I remembered in my school days, 9th class, I guess, like that. There is a table called trigonometry table is there. If you have a requirement of, for example, what is cos 30, immediately we'll go and we'll refer what is a cos 30 value. What is the value for tan 90? Immediately we'll go and we'll refer what is the tan 90 value. Like that, one table is there, right? Here also we are constructing the table. Now, from today onwards, what you are discussing, in thousands of places, you'll get a requirement of working with this access modifiers, what you are configuring. Okay. So as of now, first we'll list out here. Then after that, we'll see the functionality one after another. Based on that, we'll make a tick mark. We'll make here. Okay. The first access modifier is access specifier is nothing but public is the first access modifier. What is the first one? Public is the first access modifier. Next, what is the next one? Public is the first thing. Next, private. Public, private. Default. Public, private, protected, and default. Public, private, protected, and default. These are the 4 access specifiers. Okay. Total, there are 8 access modifiers are there. Well, there are 8 access modifiers are there. One is static is one access modifier. Static is one access modifier. Static. Final. Abstract. And the first 4 things are the access specifiers, boss. These 4 things are the access specifiers. If you want, I'll make a different color I'm making here. Is public, private, protected, default. These are what? These are the access specifiers. Access specifiers. These are the remaining 8 are the access modifiers. These remaining 8 are what? Access modifiers. Static. Sorry, 1 second. Static, final, abstract, so synchronized, transient, synchronized, transient, volatile, native, and strict FP. Is what? Native, and strictFP. Okay, so these are the 8 access modifiers: native and strict FP, strictFP. So these are the 8 access modifiers are available. The first 4 things are the access specifiers: public, private, protected, default. These 8 are what? Remaining access modifiers. As of now, just I'll make a tick mark. I'll make here which one is applicable for which one. Later we'll understand programmatically. We'll understand about each and everything here. Okay. So as of now, just I'm filling this table. When you're developing, we are practicing the examples. There I'll explain you, why I made a tick mark for this particular concept. Class, public is applicable for class, but for main class it's not applicable. Protected is also not applicable for main class. Default, yes. Inner class, public is applicable. For inner class it is applicable, but for private, yes. Protected, yes. Default also, yes. For data, yes, we can access. For all the things we can access. Method, yes. I told you, right? As of now, fill this table what we are drawing. As of now, fill this table what we are drawing. Very soon, you're going to get the complete clarity about each and everything what we are writing here. Why public is applicable for class. Why protected is not applicable for main class. Okay. But as of now, just make a tick mark. That's it. Private is not applicable. Protected is not applicable. Hey, sorry. Specifiers you can apply for constructor. No issue. Specifiers you can apply for constructor. You can apply. Specifiers, no issue. Interface, it's saying like public declaration. It should be either public or it should be either default. It will not allow for other types. It will not allow. It will not allow what? For other types, it will not allow. I told you, right? Just as of now, draw this one. Soon, we are going to discuss about, meaning the day by day. What we are the day by day, we are going. We'll discuss about these topics. We'll discuss. Static is applicable for main class. It is applicable for inner class. No. For main class, it is not applicable. Static. For inner class, it is applicable. For data is applicable. Method is applicable. For constructor, it's not applicable. For interface also, it's not applicable. It's one of the most important interview questions. Even let's say I'm working as a tech lead in one of the IT company, and I taken the interviews for a lot of Java people. I taken the interview for a lot of Java people. Even now also sometimes I'll take the people who is having more experience than me, like 8 years or 9 years experience. In the first question I'll ask, I'll give this table I'll give, and I'll ask them to fill this table. Which one is applicable for which particular component? They'll take minimum 1 hour. They'll take to fill this table. I seen a lot of people, even 8 years, 9 years of experience, people also will do the same thing. Okay, but be clear with this table. Just keep it as a reference. And I told you that once if you start the programming part, slowly you'll understand about each and everything what we are trying on this table. Final is applicable for main class. It's applicable for inner class. It is applicable for data. It's applicable. Method is applicable. Constructor is applicable, and as well as constructor is not applicable. For constructor, all the access modifiers is not applicable. For interface is nothing but definitely child has to provide the implementation. So final is not applicable for interface. Final is not applicable. Abstract class, yes. Abstract inner class, yes. Abstract data, no. Abstract is not applicable for data. For method, yes. For constructor, no. And here also, yes. Here also it's no. Let's say. Okay, these modifiers you cannot apply for interface. You cannot apply these modifiers. Synchronized. No, synchronized is only for method, not for main class, not for inner class, not for data. Only for what? Only for method. That's it. No constructor and no interface with the synchronized modifier. Either it should be a method, either it should be what? A method. That is what the synchronized. Transient is not applicable for any other things. Transient is applicable only for data. Only for data only transient is applicable. All the other modifiers are not applicable for all. Okay. Next, another thing is nothing but volatile. Even the volatile also same thing. It will not applicable for class, not applicable for inner class, and it's also same thing like me. The data what is next one? Native. This native is also applicable only for method. Native is applicable only for method. Remaining all you can specify as zero. You can no you can specify for all. Okay. What is the last one? Strict FP. Strict FP is applicable for main class. It is applicable for inner class. It is applicable. Strict FP. For data, it's not applicable. For it directly communicating data is not applicable for strict FP. Method is also applicable. Constructor is not applicable for strict FP, as well as interface also not applicable for method. This is what the whole table was. This is what the whole table, which particular modifier or specifier is applicable for which particular component. Okay, we had to discuss about all these concepts. We had to discuss. Okay, so you don't worry now. So separately, we'll not discuss any class. Will not discuss for this session. Just remember this initial diagram. You know, after completion of in one day we cannot explain all these things. Whenever we are discussing a particular topic, then at that time I'll tell you open this particular so and so line, so and so statement. You will get the result for this. Like that, the tan tan theta cos theta, these kind of values in case of your C program. Sorry, in case of your 10th class, 9th class. Here in Java, this table will help you. Okay, so keep this one for your lifelong. And tomorrow onwards, we'll start about this access specifiers part. Will start from tomorrow. I'm not taking much time today, okay, because not feeling well. And you focus on these two things. What we discussed today. What is this instance blocks and what is the static block? Instance block and static block. And note down this diagram. Note down this diagram. What I specified. Keep this one with you for your reference in the further classes. What you're discussing. Meaning after tomorrow, whatever the classes we are discussing, from tomorrow classes, what we are discussing, those classes, the solution or the answer for those classes you are going to get in this table. That's why be careful with this table somewhere, keep in a safe position. Okay. Yeah. So thank you guys. See you tomorrow. And tomorrow onwards, I told you right. From tomorrow we'll start this access specifiers part. Will start from tomorrow class. Okay. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Thank you.